the world-famous Parkway Center on this Monday, June 9th, the year of our Lord 2025. A salute to Steve Bannon. Now, first of all, I think there's a general statement I need to start with as we get into all these news items and obviously the inflammatory things that have been happening over the last few days. We are living out the curse. The curse is, may you live in interesting times. And we can certainly say these are interesting times. Well, who would I like to start with? First of all, because he is annoying the hell out of me, I'm going to have to bring him up. That would be the communist thug disguised as a U.S. Senator. That would be Mr. Chris Murphy. Oh no, that's right. He is a U.S. Senator, but he's still a communist thug. You know, when we did research on this guy a couple of years ago as part of our Connecticut Comedy of the Week program, it was surprising how many communist-affiliated people or communist-adjacent people he had around him. Now, so his famous saying is, we are going to rise to this moment by being out there in the streets. Well, I don't know, Senator Murphy, but when you have the kind of violence that's going on in Los Angeles, and it is exceptional, I'm not sure this is the right thing to say. And in fact, I would submit you, sir, are tone deaf. Yeah, you're going to have to do better than that. Or maybe you need to take another walk across the state. Maybe that's the answer. Yeah, and what adds to this is you have that member in good standing of the Venceremos Brigade. That's a communist activist organization under Castro, of which Karen Bass was a leading member during the 70s and 80s. Yeah, so she said, we have networks ready to go as this whole thing unfolds. So let me just start with a seminal point here concerning these riots. Every time you're going to hear me say it, I'm going to get boring. Why now? Okay? The ICE has been apprehending people left and right around this country for more than several months now. But here now, all of a sudden in Los Angeles, we have a little problem. Well, I just want to offer up at least one observation. Los Angeles has to be the single largest concentration of illegal aliens of any city in the country. So if there's a place to go fishing, it's Los Angeles. Which also means that the people who have a vested interest in keeping these illegal aliens in the country would see this coming to Los Angeles as a fight in which they must engage. And so they have. And just to bring up the point, one of the links I put up, it's the 16 things you need to know about the riots in Los Angeles. So they're exceptionally violent. We know that the media is lying. Oh my God, are they lying? There was a situation where somebody actually bombed an ICE facility. And it's a reprise from the George Floyd days and the BLM days. Yep, they showed up again, those pallets of cinder block, and they've been put to good use right away. And what's interesting also is that there are a number of organizations that seem to have popped up who are organizers for this, one of which is Unión del Barrio. There are others. Anyway, the other part that's kind of concerning is the way that the president of the new Confederacy is acting. That would be, that's right, Gavin Newsom. So he's been talking like a Confederate, right? He's trying to talk as if he was going to engage in some form of secession or sedition. Take your pick. No can do, buddy. So I think another point to consider here with respect to the Los Angeles riots, which are going to go on for a while, is that ICE has made it clear that Los Angeles will remain a target for heavy deportation activity. So this is going to be a real battle here. Now the question in my mind is, how bad is it going to get? The California National Guard has been federalized, and Newsom is trying to fight that. He won't do anything about it. Bass won't do anything about it. And you have the U.S. Marines poised to be deployed into Los Angeles. Maybe we don't want to call it martial law, but it sure has the look and feel. So, with all that's going on, we still see that there's a lot that's not being done. And I would hope somewhere in the next couple of days there are significant arrests and real efforts are made to stop these riots. But so far, not so much. Anyway, let me just try and rattle through some of the other points here. There was at least one clip on X that showed communism is still alive and well. A report that looting is growing, case of a Michael Jordan store being broken into. Then there's a case where they were attacking police headquarters. Then another group running the riots is Coalition for Humane Immigrant Rights of Los Angeles. Anyway, and there's a very interesting story claiming, so here's Karen Bass, where you have all this evidence that she has been involved as a communist for a very long time. And now we have another suggestion that she's been a part of the CIA. So are you telling me that CIA members figure prominently in how the communists figure prominently in how the CIA is run? We will have to look into it. In any event, so we put the links are up there. We've had a little technical issue, but we'll get them up. And then, so let's see, what's another good one here? Trump promises he's going to fix the mess. And just so it's clear, we've been putting out reports of just exactly who these rioters are. Guess what? They are illegal aliens and criminals. They have a rap sheet. All right? Now, the kickoff, though, ladies and gentlemen, the last link for this story is an interview between Lara Logan and this gentleman who works for the FBI. His job is to take a closer look at those cases where jihadists and communists work together, hand in glove. The news is not good, ladies and gentlemen. The number of cities in which there are significant jihadist communist networks will surprise you. It will shock you. It will disturb you. So, yeah, if you want to be disturbed, go look at that link. And the city, believe it or not, where he says it's by far the worst, is Houston. The biggest jihadist communist network is to be found in Houston. Wow. Okay, now, so that's enough of Los Angeles for now, but it's a story that just keeps changing. Meantime, Fort Knox leveraged. Where's the gold? All right, so there was a very good article here that I posted the link for that does what counts as a deep dive into this whole issue. And the article wishes to suggest that, don't worry, the gold is there. We might still be a little skeptical. But here's the real problem. If you have not heard of the word hypothecation, you're about to hear about it tonight. You know what hypothecation is, right, Eric? Okay. So that's when you loan an asset to more than one party. What? You loan your asset? How can you do that? Well, that's how hypothecation works. It is possible that the gold in Fort Knox, has by the Department of the U.S. Treasury, has been leased out to multiple parties in a hypothecation or re-hypothecation scheme. All right, still don't have a definitive answer, but when you look at the way there was all this talk and they suddenly went silent and we're not really getting any more information on this, this is a reasonable explanation. So, Secretary Bessent, if you have anything to say on this subject which you wish to calm the fears of Americans, you might want to speak up. Just saying. All right, so I had to share that with you. Meantime, just mention it because it is so important. You had a presidential candidate, Uribe, U-R-I-B-E, who was shot in the head twice, in the body once, by a, hold on to it, 15-year-old boy. Okay? How could something like that happen? So yes, there have been recriminations and accusations pointed at his version of the Secret Service. Meantime, the good news is he survived the first surgery. There's a second surgery. He's expected to do well, but you know, he still remains in very serious condition. Now, this is the one I really like. So the title is, Russia finally figures it out. China is not their friend. Well, 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 after all the happy talk about best buddies forever, now we have Russian intelligence saying, we're seeing signs here that China is not playing by the rules. Oh, really? Well, when did you guys figure that one out? Glad you've discovered it. So now you get to check your electronic equipment that you brought in from China to see if there are any chips from Huawei in them. You better get busy, guys. So look, if you're going to continue to get in bed with the Chinese, expect stuff like this and worse. So I don't know, maybe some Russians are a little bit more skeptical beforehand, but who knows. Now, here's the other thing. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to think about this. This is unbelievable. There's so many things that have unintended consequences. All right. The situation in Ukraine, Russia is still a very hot mess, and it shows every sign of getting hotter with each passing day. In spite of that, I want to suggest to you the following possibility. Somehow, in the middle of all this, that the relationship between Russia and America should improve to the point that we talk about partnerships. Okay, the way to talk about this is President Trump driving a wedge between China and Russia. Biden, on the other hand, drove them together. So if Trump could figure out a way to sort of start to pull them apart, that is for the better. So here's the thing. There was an article claiming that Russians would like to have normalized relationships with America. What? Are you sure about that? Well, the link is there. Go check it out. Meantime, Brownstone Institute. I want to give them another shout out. Okay, brownstone.org. Go check it out. They have an article which I think the title is The Grim Truth. All right. And it's that you've got two things working together here, hand in hand, and we haven't really put the two together in the way that we should. On the one hand, the ongoing fanatical, out-of-control spending, right? What are we? We're heading for $40 trillion in national debt, and if this so-called big, beautiful bill isn't fixed, it's going to get even worse. Okay, all right, so there's the money. Meantime, before COVID, all the issues around the rise of a surveillance state in America in the last 5 years have only gotten worse. More debt, more surveillance. Where are we going? So there's a problem here, but I will just simply title this by saying, we, ladies and gentlemen, if we care about and love our country, are confronted with never-ending vigilance against the surveillance state. Whole other subject. I just wanted to bring it up, okay? And now we get to move on to the next lovely thing here. Yes, the next lovely thing. This is good news, all right? I want to mention that Tina Peters, who remains in prison in Colorado for doing the right thing, is finally beginning to get some potential relief, okay? The federal government has filed an appellate brief on her behalf. Now, just give me a minute here because I want to grab this. Where'd it go? Come on. Yes, all this stuff. Okay, here it is. So basically the appellate brief is asking some very pointed, pertinent questions concerning her case. So let me just give you a few examples. So what they filed, did the court deny Ms. Peters due process? So in my mind, due process can certainly include, prohibiting any evidence that you wanted to present, and that is exactly what happened. Was the evidence insufficient? Did the district court err as a matter of law in denying Ms. Peters' motion to dismiss based on her claim of immunity pursuant to the Supremacy Clause and the Privileges or Immunity Clause of the U.S. Constitution? Had she had adequate notice of her charges? So there are other examples like this. I'm so glad to read this article. Yeah. So thank you to the American Rights Alliance. And let me just name the names here. These are the lawyers who put this together. They are Peter Tickton, John Case, Stephanie Lambert, John Mosley, Pat McSweeney, Bob Sinclair, and Linda Good. You have got to go read this article. So it's just the beginning. You can be sure that the state will try to dismiss this, but the fight has begun where none existed before. So this is all for the good. Now, the other thing, Mexico, they're getting nuts. Now, did you know that 4% of Mexico's GDP is remittances sent to Mexico by illegal aliens working in America? Okay, they broke the law coming to America. Now they're taking the money and sending it back to Mexico. I think there's a little something illegal going on there, just saying. But I keep goofing up her name. Schulman, the president of Mexico, she's really setting the stage here. All right, now I want to move on to what is really a very important point. The link is there. It is let me see here, the second link where I talk about AI and the illusion of thinking. Okay, this is a very interesting paper published by Apple, okay, which is taking the position that the notion that AI is able to reason is an exaggeration at best, okay? Now, it gets, yes, a little complicated, but the basic 5-cent version is that researchers showing that whether they're calling language reasoning models can only handle a certain amount of complexity, and then some very strange things happen to the performance of these models once they reach these complexity limits. Can it be fixed? We don't know, but I'll tell you that this article, written by some graduate students, I think at the University of Virginia, is very skeptical about it because they see these as very, to put it nicely, very difficult problems. So you have to consider the possibility of all the problems I've been telling you about AI, that here, they could be hitting a wall. And then there's another article that makes the point that there's no such thing as a value-free AI system. You have to make a decision about which way you're going to go in terms of, I'll call it ethical standards, for lack of a better term. I go back to the fact that when these models were first being put together, you had these reports of these, when these AI models were given certain information, they became surprisingly racist. An algorithm that becomes racist? So you're going to have to explain that one to me. So yes, the left is addicted to violence. And let me just, all right, there are two things here. So the Stephen Miller, okay, that would be the policy director, I believe, who works with President Trump. So President Trump had a little following out with Elon Musk. But guess what? Stephen Miller's wife advises Elon Musk. So there's a level there where you're going to start talking about conflict of interest. I find it interesting. Anyway, so let me get to there's just two other things. The Guilford Courier, ladies and gentlemen, is a community newspaper in the town of Guilford, Connecticut. This is a communist rag, if there ever was one. A friend of mine named David Hallman has been trying to submit letters to the letter editor, and they'd be rejected left and right, and they're giving all kinds of weak, lazy, nonsense excuses to not publish his letters. So I and others will be joining with Dave to put pressure on the Courier to fix their screwed up editorial policy, which is highly biased, and that's putting it nicely. All right, last thing I wanted to mention is the food additive of the week. This week's food additive, it's called diacetyl. Diacetyl is food that, well, there are two things. First of all, the point I want to make about diacetyl is that, and here's the molecule. Here's the molecule. See how simple that is? All right, that's a byproduct of fermentation. Bacteria will produce this in beer and wine fermentation. Diacetyl will be one of the, quote, byproducts. All right, well, the thing about diacetyl is it imparts kind of a buttery flavor, so it's used as an artificial ingredient in popcorn. Now, interestingly enough, there's a little problem with this molecule. If you get too much exposure to it, it can cause very significant lung damage called popcorn lung. What a surprise. That's because workers at these popcorn plants who are exposed to very high levels of diacetyl have developed this condition. And I believe it's an irreversible damage to the lungs. Okay, so that said, in smaller amounts, it's used in all sorts of foods. And all of that said, this, I think, this compound, I would use as an important exhibit of why Secretary Kennedy is right about the problems we have. Now, I don't believe this might be considered generally regarded as safe, but even when you take that into consideration, oh my goodness, let me see if I can find the example here. There is so much fundamental research concerning the health and safety of this compound, for example, which has never been done. Okay, so let's see if I can find an example here. One of them, all right, acute toxicity, bear with me here, this is important. Here we go. Reproductive toxicity, okay? Does this affect reproduction in any way? No information is available. All right, so if you're not talking about, then let's talk about sperm and ovaries, germ cells. Germ cell mutagenicity, no information available. Carcinogenicity, no information. We haven't done the work. We haven't done the work, okay? And the problem here, and by the way, it is fatal. If you can overdose on diacetyl and die. It's been demonstrated more than once. So this is a puzzle, right? Because it occurs naturally. It occurs in coffee beans, of all things. Who knew? Okay? But in excess, it becomes harmful, very harmful. So watch out for diacetyl. Look it up. Okay? Let me show it to you one more time. There's the name. Go to the Wikipedia entry. Check it out. All right. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Until next week. Yes.